So I just like to greet everybody. Good afternoon. I am Alan Lopes. I am the Deputy Director of the National Agency of Water, and I will coordinate this webinar together with my colleague Rogério Mendes Caldas, the coordinator of dam safety here in this agency. We have here a long partnership with Usace, focused on this last agreement in the part of the dam safety and economic analysis. So we are performing and making different webinars and to transmit knowledge, to skill and develop the institutionally being the agency as well as all the different institutions that are our partners with the to supervise, and they are those that are designed to struggle against the problems that were identified in dam safety in Brazil. So I think we have already worked and we have already talked about the failure mode and different types of failure mode and hydrology and even the weather change, risk analysis and portfolio analysis for them and experiences and the lesson learned. And more recently, and today we have a more specific webinar toward to the experience of a California state, because all the other webinars were focused in the focus at, in the point of view of Usace and also predictions from experts from that area. In this moment, we will have this webinar with the experience of one specific American state that has the role to regulate and supervise the dam safety, what is maximize dam ANA's role in Brazil also. So said that, I briefly would like to, Rogério, give you the floor so you can introduce yourself, introduce Calvin, and then I will introduce our speaker. So Rogério, you first. You are muted. Please open your microphone, Rogério.
Boa tarde a todas e todos.
Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to thank you the Usace support. As Alan said, I think it's the 11th workshop with different topics, all in Anna's channel in YouTube about dam safety. Thank you for our speaker, Arya Balakrishnan, that will talk a little bit about his experience in California. That is a state that has many dams with different sizes, as we also have here in different states in Brazil. So I think this will be an interesting interchange of experiences and very good for us to take some lesson learned. So thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you very much. Now I will transfer again the microphone to Calvin. Now officially, Calvin, if you could introduce yourself, that would be good.
Sim, boa tarde todo mundo.
Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to thank Anas, that is a partner that we have here, that it's a very strong one and very valuable in this partnership between Usace and Ana. I also would like to thank to our speaker that is here with us today, Arya Balakrishnan. So also thank you for the information you are about to bring to us. So we have this partnership with Ana for many, many years in this dam safety partnership. This is an area that is very strong with this perspective. And now you will heard the perspective, that in a state perspective from California. So Alan, you can move forward with the introductions. So thank you, Calvin. Thank you for being here. Now I would like to introduce Dr. Arya Balakrishnan. Thank you, sir, for being here with us today and dedicated your time so you can teach us a little bit about how it works in California state and how you act in dam safety in the state of California. Dr. Ariel work in California Division of Dam Safety as a main engineer and is also manager of management in engineering. He also have leader two programs related to floods and another one related to Flood risk in dams that were established by law in 2017. Previously, he worked in engineering division in the hydrology department and private industry and Fur West company, mainly in projects related to dams and levees. Dr. Balakrishna has more than 25 years of experience after he graduated by the University of California with a doctorship and master in geotechnical engineering. So be very welcome, sir. And now you have the floor. And I would like to tell to our participants to welcome to all of them and say then that we have a moment of questions and answer at the end of the presentation. You can use the tool for Q&A, tool, and for interpretation. You have a globe on the bottom of your screen where you can click and hear it in Portuguese or in English. This speech that we have here that will be in English. So Dr. Aria, the floor is yours. You can share your presentation with us and introduce yourself. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So thank you very much. It's very grateful to present and partner with Brazil, Ana, and others. It is very kind of you to ask us to present our dam safety program and the legislation we recently received and how we handle those legislations and how we advance in the dam safety. So today my topic's going to be I'm planning to cover the background of California Dam Safety Program and also what are the recent legislations we were implementing. It is mainly after the Oroville spillway incident. So we have quite a few new legislation came in. So I'm going to go over a little bit of those. In addition, we have, as part of the legislation, which we identified the downstream hazard potentials for all of our dams, and then that kind of provide the emergency planning, and then that recur inundation map program that the California Division of Safety of Dams kind of review and approve those. And then we also have some regulation related to inspection and reevaluation of an existing dams. So with that, so just going to go over the background of our dam safety. So this slide shows the historical events in California. So California Division of Safety of Dams created in 1929 after St. Francis Dam that failed in 1928. This dam was located roughly 45 miles north of LA Basin, the Los Angeles, failed without any warning near the midnight of March 12th, 1928. That killed more than 400 people. At that time of failure, the reservoir was nearly full capacity, which is about 38,000 acre feet. That's the first initiation of California safety of dams. And then we had another incident in 1963, that is Baldwin Hill Dam. This is an off-stream reservoir that was built on hilltop and failed suddenly because of the foundation movement in December 1963. It caused about 5 loss of lives. After this failure, because this was an off-stream reservoir, the off-stream reservoirs become California Dam Safety Program as well. Those are jurisdictional dams as well. And then in 1971, the earthquake, Lower San Fernando Dam, had near failure because of the earthquake incident. It is a very close call. The upstream slided because of the earthquake event, and then it was holding barely like 2 or 3 feet of crust embankment all the reservoir level. So there were a lot of evacuations and that were done in the LA Basin area. This also helped to understand the earthquake impacts, and then initiated the emergency planning in 1972. So basically, these kind of incidents help us to improve our dam safety program, as well as we were growing up because of the workload increasing as we have these incidents. And then recently, you may aware of it, in 2017, Oroville spillway incident happened. It's a flood control spillway chute that damaged and limited spillway releases during a series of atmospheric pressure storms that had about 4.4 million acre feet runoff over the 50 days in the watershed. So that is the bigger event, and we have people evacuated, about 200,000 people evacuated, but luckily the dam didn't overtop or fail. This incident created many new programs in our Division of Safety of Dams since 2017. So I will cover those in a little bit after going over the background a little more. This slide shows we regulate about 1,240 dams in California. We don't regulate any federally owned dams. In addition to us in California, there's a Federal Regulatory Commission, Energy Commission, that is FERC. They regulate power generating dams. So some of the power generating dams that are owned by California or local entities, we have two people regulating the same dams. And then, so this shows variety of dams we have. We have concrete variable arch dam and gravity dam and rock fill dams and earth embankment dams as well. So if you look at the jurisdictional size, we have, let me get the pointer. So this kind of shows any dam with the dam height and storage capacity ratio. So this, if any dam less than 6 feet of height, then it won't be jurisdictional. Any dam less than 15 acre feet of storage won't be jurisdictional. But this green area would be the jurisdictional size for California dams. It's somewhat similar to federal criteria or FEMA criteria as well. So this slide shows what kind of activities we do in our dam safety program. So we independently review the design when they are building a new dam or when they are modifying an existing dam. We review the design as well as specs and drawings, and then approve those before they go into construction. And when they do the construction, we oversee some of the construction more critical components. We don't necessarily stay all the time in the construction sites because of the resources limit, but we go and observe key features of the construction during construction. And then we annually inspect and monitor the dams that are existing dams. And also we review the instrumentation and surveillance dams. In addition, we have in the past, before 2017, we did some reevaluations like seismic reevaluation if there are resources available. And also, we also did some emergency responses as needed, depending on when the emergency comes up. But in 2017, after Oroville incidents, there are few new programs came in. Those are the one on the right-hand side. The spillway evaluation, because of the Oroville spillway, we immediately looked at the spillway evaluation. That is more focused evaluation of spillways similar to Oroville. And then We also do inundation map review and approval for all of the dams. I will kind of go over what are the details on these a little bit. And also we introduced about risk-informed decision making after the Oroville. So we are starting to look at the risk studies of existing dams. And then this Oroville incident kind of gave us additional administrative power for civil penalties. So I will cover a little bit on those as well. So those are the major programs we kind of handle as part of the Division of Safety of Dams. So this kind of gives an idea how we are organized. So we have a division manager, and then there's a different branches underneath the division manager. There are three technical branches. So the field engineering branch, they are responsible for annual inspection as well as construction monitoring and instrumentation of dams. And then design engineering branch, they are responsible for reviewing any modification to the dam or any new construction of a dam, design, and then specification and drawings. The reevaluation engineering branch, that's the branch I manage. So we responsible for any existing dams, review and analysis reevaluation, as well as we are responsible for the inundation map reviews as well. And then we have supporting branch, that is engineering geology branch. They support pretty much all three technical branches as needed basis on the geology side, engineering geology and seismicity. And also there are administrative branch and also enforcement branch. Enforcement branch is new, and then reevaluation branch and design, one of the design section is new because of the workload increase since 2017. The figure on the right-hand side shows how all the Californias are separated into areas and regions. So the northern region has 3 areas, and then southern region has 3 areas, and the central region has 3 areas. These are divided so that we could have people assigned to inspect the dams and then take care of those. So we have an office only in Sacramento, in one office. So we fly or drive wherever we need to go within the California for inspection or construction monitoring and things like that. So given some of the background, let me move on to the new legislations California received. So since 2017, at the time, Governor Brown was in charge of that. So immediately after Oroville, he came and introduced 4-point dam safety bolstering plan that including emergency action plan as well as spillway reviews immediately. And then he, as part of the Senate Bill 92 came in June 2017. So in that legislation that required all dams except low hazard dam, I'm going to explain in a bit about the downstream hazard potentials in California. So all dams except the low hazard dams, owners should develop inundation maps and submit that to the Division of Safety of Dams and get approval before they start developing emergency action plan. So, but once they develop the emergency action plan, that goes to California Governor's Office of Emergency Services to review and approve the emergency EAP's emergency action plan. And then it's also introduced some enforcement. Senate Bill 92 allowed us to have an enforcement so that we can have civil penalties and fines and punitive reservoir restriction and property lien if needed. But in the past, we didn't have that flexibility. We could only restrict the reservoir if the dam owners are not following our requirements. And then they also allowed to modify our annual fees. We are fully funded by the dam owners. The state of California doesn't provide any general fund for our program, so we are fully funded by dam owners based on the annual fee, as well as if they are making any modification to the dam, there will be an application fee as well. So we are purely based on dam owner funding. So this Senate Bill 92 allowed us to amend some of the annual fees as well. And then Assembly Bill 1270 came in February 2018 that actually required some frequencies of our dam inspection of existing dams. I will go over a little more detail. In addition to that, they required us to hire an independent reviewer to review our dam safety protocols, including any reevaluation procedure or inspection procedure. And then they reviewed and provided some recommendation. That's how we introduced to the risk evaluation or RIDM approach. Then also Assembly Bill 2516 that introduced us to publish any dam-related critical information that would benefit for the public. For example, some of the restricted reservoirs. And also it encouraged us to, it required us to publish all the inundation map that are approved by us. So that will provide public about their risk where they live in California. So those are the major legislation we have since 2017. And then the spillway program is basically, we identified about 93 large chute spillways needing condition assessment after Oroville incident. It's very similar type of spillways we looked at. Then owners did the condition assessment and developed a report. So DSOD participated in the inspections and also reviewed report and followed up with additional work as needed. The outcome of the spillway program, they are in different stages right now. So additional field investigations are conducted on concrete coring on the chute and video cameraing that sub-drain system and see if there are any blockage or any issues. And then also some minor interim repairs were done as part of the condition assessment by the owners. And then some of the spillways that are really bad to do with the maintenance only. So they were required to replace those spillway or rehabilitate them. And so those are still going on. That's the spillway program in a short view. And then I'm moving into downstream hazard potential. That is actually a significant effort after Senate Bill 92. So our downstream hazard potential classifications are very similar to federal classification like FEMA. However, we have 4 different categories. So the last category, extremely high, is a subgroup of high hazard dam in federal agencies. So let me go over those. The low hazard dam has no probable loss of human life and low economic impact. So pretty much any economic impact or environmental impact would be principally limited to the dam owner's property. There won't be any potential for loss of life. The significant dams are no loss of life, potential loss of life, but can cause some economic losses and environmental damage or impacts to critical facilities. Those are considered significant dams if they fail. And then high hazard dams, those are expected to cause loss of at least 1 human life. And additional criteria, it doesn't matter whether it has economic impact or not, but if there's a potential for loss of life, then it would be high hazard dam. Extremely high hazard dam would be the same if there's a potential of one human life loss, and also if it has more than 1,000 people in the inundation zone. So those means those people are at the population at risk due to the dam failure. So our criteria are based on sunny day failure condition with a full reservoir. We don't use storm-induced failure criteria when we determine these downstream hazard potentials. So these are the parameters we use when we determine. So we use DSS-wise program that is actually FEMA funded program. And then we run the dam failure in the sunny day failure condition, and then look at the impact from the dam failure downstream side. If there is a habitable structure, then generally we looked at the depth. That's if it is more than 1 or 2 feet, then we would consider there's a potential for loss of life. Similarly, if there is an economic loss, then we would look at the economic impact if there's a structure inundated or something like that. And then we also look at non-habitable structure that are like a storage facility or something like that. There won't be any potential loss of life, but there could be an economic impact. Similarly, we look at campgrounds. There are potential for loss of life depending on the depth and the velocity of the flood. And then economic impact, unless there are some economic impact, we would consider economic impact as well, but typically mostly for loss of life. And then roads, we also look at how busy the roadways are, and are they paved or unpaved? Are they considered? We also consider depth and velocity for loss of life, but paved and unpaved would play into economic impact. So if it is unpaved gravel road, we don't necessarily assume it's going to be a significant economic impact. So, but if it is paved, we would consider significant impact. And we also look at depth and velocities when we make these determination. Similarly, farmland, if it is flooded, there will be an economic loss, and any environmental sensitive areas, we would look at the depth and velocity and decide whether it has an economic impact to outside the dam owner's property. That's how we interpret the hazard classification. So this one shows how our dams in California are distributed based on the hazard classification and the age. So we have about 1,240 dams in California, but if you look at this right-hand side legend, we have about 266 extremely high hazard dams and about 463 high hazard dams, and 130 significant and 378 low hazard dams. So majority of the extremely high hazard dams are located in the San Francisco Bay Area and also near the Southern California, Los Angeles Basin. So they are also in this map, you can see the major faults line that are in California. So majority of these are going to have seismically active areas, these extremely high hazard dams. So the seismic impact is pretty significant in California dams as well. And then some of the eastern dams, they have low, high, but some of them are high because the flow from any failure would go into some of these highly populated areas as well. So those would make as extremely high hazard dams in some of these eastern side dams as well. So if you look at the age of our dams, it's widespread. It can go up to 125 years old. On average, the age is about 70 years old dam. The dam owners ranges wide range. We have farmers and home association and individual owners as a dam owners, as well as some agencies and state of California as well a dam owner. So we regulate all of them. So the problem compared to us and Federal Energy Commission is they have power generating dam owners. Those are mostly somewhat more resources savvy compared to farmers and individual dam owners. So our program basically have difficulties to implement and have dam owners to take care of their dams in a better manner because of their resources issue. I'll kind of go over that challenge when we asked the inundation map and EAP development recently. That is a big challenge for many of the dam owners who doesn't have enough resources. So the next one is inundation map and EAP preparation. That is part of the Senate Bill 92. So this plot shows, this figure shows what the dams before, long time ago, like this is in the early 90s. The post-construction figure on the left shows the downstream is pretty empty. There wasn't much development. But in present days, it is fully developed. So the risk of the dam goes up. However, these developments are not controlled by the dam owners. These are cities and counties, they approve this development. The dam owners are punished because of the downstream hazard increased. So their design criteria or requirements are higher now compared to before because of the downstream population. So this is a big issue, and I believe everywhere this is going on. But in California, the planning entity doesn't necessarily involve dam owners in their planning phase for the developments. So for the emergency planning purpose, there are three factors combined. One is hazard potential classification, and then inundation map and EAPs. So Senate bill required all the dam owners responsible for emergency preparedness planning for their dams and critical appurtenant structure. I will define in a bit what critical appurtenant structure is. Someone working, hopefully you are not bothered too much. DSOD may classify the hazard classification potential dams by July 1st, 2017. So this July 1st, 2017 is when we actually identified all the dams with downstream hazard potentials. So that was a big effort for all 1,240 dams in a short time frame. The February was the incident happened in 2017, and we had to put all the dams with the identified hazard classifications. The reason is because all the dams except the low hazard dams require the inundation maps and EAP. So that's why this is big hurdle on us immediately. In addition to, we were doing spillway evaluations as well at the time. And in addition to our regular dam safety programs that has been going on too. And then our EAP should be updated every 10 years or sooner if they have modified the storage or dam, significant modification to the dam or downstream development happen before 10-year update. Then they have to update sooner than 10-year time frame. So like I said, inundation map are approved by DSOD and EAPs are approved by California Governor's Office of Emergency Services. And then all the inundation map should be published, available for public. So the critical appurtenant structures, we defined any feature like saddle dams or spillways that has height greater than 25 feet and storage that is a barrier that holds the storage more than 5,000 acre feet. And also it could pose downstream significant hazard if the structure fails. So if any of these conditions meet by the structure, then we would consider that is a critical appurtenant structure. So we have, out of 1,240 dams, we have about 209 dams that has these critical appurtenant structure. Total of 305 structures out of 209 dams. So when we develop inundation map, we have to develop inundation map for the main dam, as well as if there is a critical appurtenant structure, then they have to develop inundation map for the critical appurtenant structure. Dam owners are developing the inundation map and sending us to review and approve. So at the time when the legislature's SB 92 introduced in June 2017, so we have extremely high and significant hazard dam that were required by the legislation to submit the EAPs. So they should submit the emergency action plans with the due dates, very stringent due dates. It's like 6 months gap for all the extremely high hazard dam owners to submit EAP. So within that time, they have to make sure they have inundation map approved and then have the EAP draft completed. Many dam owners didn't have an EAP or inundation map that we approved because we never did the inundation map approval before 1917. So they have to submit to us and we develop, and that is the stringent criteria. And then for all the high hazard dams, it's 1 year further, January 1st, 2019, and significant hazard dam 2 year further down. So these are bigger challenge for smaller dam owners because they are struggled for the financially, and also the requirement indicated they have to have a civil engineer, professional engineer stamp this inundation map when they developed. So that they have to hire some consultant to do this work as well. As part of the inundation map review, we have about inundation map required for about 1,000 dams and their critical appurtenant structure. We performed independently using DSS-WISE software. Like I mentioned, that is actually FEMA-funded software. And then we coordinate with the dam owner. So we independently model and look at the downstream consequence and flooding areas, and then compare with the dam owner's submittal map. And if they are in reasonable agreement, we approve it. If there is a discrepancy, then we will communicate with the dam owners and try to fix the issue. And then once we approve these inundation map, we publish them in our website. If anybody interested in, they can go and look at it. It's also linked to our dam safety, California dam safety website as well. So in this published, this is kind of view of how it looks. So it would have a variety of features that people can use, and people can also search based on the address. What are the dams within their neighborhood? And then this shows with the hazard classifications, and then it has map attached to it. So once they click on the point, it will show the inundation zone like in the Google map. The goal of the publication is to view inundation map boundaries on the website viewer, and also public can specify address and find out what are the dams that could potentially flood to their house or something like that. And then they can download all the PDF of the maps, and also there is a GIS data, raster files they can download and manipulate if they need to. So those are included in our web publisher. So anybody can go and download if they are interested in. And then moving on to dam inspections and reevaluation programs. So this is the Assembly Bill 1270 that came in February 2018. So they set frequency of inspections, two things. One is frequency of inspection requirement for dams and pertinent structures. In addition, they also wanted California Dam Safety Protocol to be reviewed by an independent reviewer. So on the inspection side, we have been inspecting even before this assembly bill came in. We have been generally inspecting every year most of our dams. But this assembly bill helped us to really narrow it down, like to obey the requirement every year. So the extremely high, and significant hazard dams, we should inspect every year. But if it is low hazard dam, then we could inspect every 2 years. But majority of the low hazard dam, if they are situated near the one of the other dams, we go and inspect every year because it doesn't take extra effort on the driving and things. So majority of the dams we inspect almost every year. And then regarding the outlet, so the owners should operate their spillways or outlet gates. They should operate annually for extremely high and significant and low hazard dams as well. But the DSOD should go and operate with the presence of owner every 3 years. So owner would do annually, but DSOD would be with the owner every 3 years to operate these gates. So that is the inspection requirement came from Assembly Bill 1270. And then this go kind of rhythm approach that actually one of the recommendation came from the independent reviewer of our protocols. So this is kind of new to Division of Safety of Dams. Even though we consider risk in our design and other thing, but we are standard based approach in the past. Now we are slowly moving into risk-based approach. And then we are introducing this risk approach only for high and extremely high hazard dams. We are not, that's the recommendation came in, and we are not planning to do risk evaluations on significant or low hazard dams. So we will mainly use existing information because we have more than 720 dams that we need to go over the risk evaluation. The independent consultant, they wanted us to completely look at the risk portfolio of our high and extremely high hazard dams, and then select the dams for reevaluation purpose, like focus reevaluation. In the past, we haven't done that. We really reevaluated most of the dams for seismic concern, or if there's a spillway gate failure happened somewhere, then we would look at those. But now we are going through the risk evaluation, and then from the risk study, we would identify what failure mode really driving the risk, and then we will focus on those failure mode when we go more deeper reevaluation, and then if necessary, we would inform the dam owner. So our risk evaluation is similar to SQRA level. It's mainly for prioritizing our DSOD workload. And then once we identify the risk of the dam and then the potential failure mode that are risk drivers, then we would do more focused reevaluation to make sure there is an issue, because majority of the risk evaluation has interpretation and judgment calls put into the risk evaluation. And then we more focused reevaluation, and then if we still identify concern that we want a dam owner to fix, so we will communicate to the dam owner at that point and then talk to them, and then they would come up with the solution for the concern we have on particular structure or particular issue. So that's how we plan to move forward on the RIDDM program. So right now we are looking at only existing dams, high hazard dams, but eventually the recommendation from independent consultant is to use the risk freedom program for design and for the entire division of safety of dams. I think this is my last slide. Let me see. Yeah. So that is my last slide. So if any questions, please feel free to let me know.
Perfeito, muito obrigado, doutor Aria, pela apresentação.
Thank you very much, Dr. Aria, for your presentation. It was very informative with many technical details and also with much similarity to the Brazilian model for this supervision and also the classification about the consequences, about the hazard. We also classificate it in high, medium, and low level, the potential of consequences due to dam failure in the same way as well as you do. And one of the great issues that we have here, and this is already my first question, Rogério, and is that you classify it as mean significative hazard, as a significative consequence, even if there's no life loss possibility, and if there is a possibility to lose just one life, it's already classified as extremely high, correct?
No, if it is only one life, it most likely going to be high, but the extremely high would be they have loss of one life in addition to more than 1,000 people in the inundation zone. So because California has very large population downstream of a dam, so we wanted to separate some of the smaller communities impacted dams versus larger community impacted dams. So the loss of life would be on both high and extremely high. Only difference is high may have one family or two families in the downstream, or less than. As long as they have less than 1,000 people, then it's going to be high. But extremely high is larger population downstream, more than 1,000 people downstream of a dam within the inundation zone. Is that clear?
Sim, tá claro. Mas aí,
yes, it's clear, but my question is, what changes? What changes in terms of requirements of dams for being a dam classified as with an extremely high hazard or just as a high hazard, high risk? It means the dams that have around more than 1,000 people in the surround are considered extremely high. What changes? Do they have more requirements concerning to the supervision and safety? What's the difference?
So they would have a hold higher standard for their design and inspection and things. So they have to design for higher seismic loading as well as higher hydrologic loading. So, for example, if a dam is extremely high, we would ask them to design for probable maximum flood. But if it is high, we may allow them to go in a return period like 100,000 or 10,000 year return period if it is high. Similarly, for seismic loading, we would go very higher loading level when they do the design for seismic event. Extremely high would have very high loading, and then high hazard dam may have a little bit of lower loading compared to extremely high hazard dam.
Perfeito. Mas em termos do plano de ação de emergência,
but in terms of the emergency action plan, it's the same requirement, right?
Yeah,
or
so
not?
they have to submit the emergency action plan, that is true, but there are certain trigger like higher water event, and then higher warning and things would come up when there's a extremely high hazard dam compared to high hazard dam. So they would have more stringent warning system and more interaction with downstream emergency managers to interact. So they have to exercise more frequently than the high or significant hazard dams.
Perfeito. Obrigado. Nós temos uma pergunta aqui
Thank
no
you. We have a question
Q&A
here in the
Arnaldo
Q&A
Souza,
from Arnaldo
que
Souza,
agradece pela
that thank you
excelente
for the
apresentação.
excellent presentation
Ele
you
pergunta
did,
se a
and he is asking if the
do
approval
projeto,
of this
novo
bill or the
projeto,
project or a new
mudanças,
project
na
for
barragem
changes in
existente,
the existing dams,
é feito por meio de processo
if
formal,
it's done through a
processo de
formal
aprovação,
process, a process of
projeto da
approval of this dam project.
Isso ele quer dizer que
It
Right.
means that
o dono da barragem
it means that the dam's owner
pode apenas
can just
proceder depois
proceed
que teve a aprovação
once
do
he
projeto.
received the
A pergunta
approval
dele é
of
se ele-
this
se-
project.
o dono da barragem ele só pode
It
construir
means
ou
that
fazer
the
essa mudança na barragem se
dam's
ele tem
owner can or make any
projeto.
change in the dams if he has received the approval of this project. Is that right? I don't know if you could understand it correctly.
Yes, I did. So I think if a dam owner wanted to make a modification to their dam, or even to drill a hole within their dam, if anything disturbing their dam footprint or dam perimeter, then they have to require a permission from us. So they have to submit the reason for modification and then design. If it is significant modification, they have to submit design and all the reports relevant to it. And then we will review and then approve it. Then only they can go and do the modification. And they should do only whatever we approve. They cannot go beyond the approved modification. So this is for all the jurisdictional size dam. If a dam that is not fall into our jurisdiction, like for example, if a dam is less than 6 feet high, then we won't step in. Dam owner can do whatever they want. But if it is jurisdictional, they have to get the permission from us first.
Isso, inclusive, para novas barragens, certo? Uma nova barragem que
This
queira
also work
ser
for a new
construída.
dam that the owner may want to build, right?
Correct. Yeah, they have to submit a formal application, and then we review and provide comments if there are any. And if everything look okay, then we would provide an approval letter for them to go and build the dam.
Ok. Obrigado. A segunda pergunta do Sérgio Salgado.
Thank you.
que
Second
também
question from
agradece pela
Sergio Salgados, that
apresentação.
also thank you for
Ele
your
disse que o senhor
presentation. He
mencionou
said that
que,
you've mentioned
algumas
that
barragens não
some dams
têm o plano de ação de emergência,
do not have this
ou ainda o mapa de
emergency
inundação.
action
Nesses
plan or
casos,
not even the flood
existe
map or
algum
inundation
tipo
map.
de assistência,
In these
algum tipo de
cases, is there any
possibilidade?
kind of
São
assistance or
duas
help
perguntas,
or
na verdade. Se
possibility?
existe
Two
algum tipo
questions,
de
actually.
assistência
Is there any kind of
que a
help,
divisão das
assistance
barragens
that
dá
your
para
division
o
for dam
empreendedor
safety
para que ele
provide
faça
to the owner of this dam
seu
so
plano de
he
ação
can
de emergência?
he can develop his
Ou
emergency
a
action
segunda
plan?
pergunta dele
Or the
se
second
existe a
question,
possibilidade da
if
barragem
there is
ser
the possibility
removida,
that this then
caso
them
ele
can
não
be
não
removed
cumpra, por
in
exemplo, a
case
obrigação de
he do not
fazer o plano de
feel
ação de
the
emergência.
requirement to have this emergency action plan.
Right. So we unfortunately we don't have any funding for the dam owners. Recently, I think last year, California as a state planning to provide some funding for any dam modification, not necessarily for inundation map. But however, federal agency like FEMA, they have some funding source that some of the dam owners can take, but it's not easy to get those funding. So some of the dam owners, they are really struggling to meet these requirements. So we cannot help them, but they have to meet those requirements. But what we would do is we send out the notification they should meet this requirement. If they don't, we could use the enforcement methodology, or they could lower the dam, like get out of the jurisdiction. They can remove, or they can reduce the storage and height. That way they would be out of the jurisdiction. Then these requirement would be not required.
Perfeito. Então, existe a possibilidade
Okay,
dele
so
ter
there is the
que
possibility
remover
of
a
this
barragem,
owner
caso
to
ele
have
não
to
cumpra
remove this dam
a
if he
obrigação.
doesn't fulfill these requirements, right? To a
Correct.
non-jurisdictional area.
That is correct, yeah.
Obrigado. Terceira pergunta do Celso de Jesus Carvalho
Third
Pontes.
question from
Quais são os
Celso de
passos
Jesus. What
ou
are the
critérios
steps
usados
or
para
criteria
desenvolver os
used
mapas de
for
inundação?
to develop the inundation maps?
By the dam owner, they would go and do some dam breach. There's FEMA regulations. I need to, yeah. There's a FEMA regulations, FEMA guidelines on how to breach a dam. They give dam breach parameters. Typically, they use HEC-RAS program to breach the dam, and then they provide inundation zone. We have regulations developed to provide more information for the dam owners. What are the breach parameters they should follow, what type of program they should use, what are the information they should submit for us to review and approve. For example, they should submit the inundation boundary as well as inundation depth, velocity, and arrival times as part of the inundation map submittals for us. So typically, most of the dam owners use 2D dam breach analysis and then develop the map. And then some dam owners, they may use 1D HEC-RAS analysis. So those would provide some of the inundation boundaries and velocities and things. So those are very clear in our regulations we provided to the dam owners. So they have to submit the PDF as well as their GIS data file so that we would upload their approved files into our website. If you are interested in, you could go and take a look at some of those submittal, I think.
Joia. E vocês fazem alguma verificação
Do you make any kind of
do mapa de
verification
inundação?
in
Dos
this
cálculos,
inundation
vocês
map with calculations that were done?
Right. So we use a separate program. Dam owners, they don't have access to this DSS WISE program. That is a separate dam breach program. So we use independently modeling the dam breach using this program. It is not perfect, but and then it depends on the terrain data, the DEM, how resolution is that, how refined those are. But we compare and at least have a separate independent breach done, and then compare the inundation boundaries, depth, and arrival times to make sure dam owner is not completely missing anything. And then if we, most of the time we have fairly decent comparison, but sometimes if we don't, then we would talk to the dam owner. Sometimes they breach more volume, sometimes they couldn't release enough volume, things like that. So we will figure out and then find a solution for those inundation maps.
Perfeito, muito obrigado, Rogério. Não temos mais
Thank
aqui
you, Rogério. We
perguntas
don't
que a
have
gente recebeu
any
alguma
other questions,
questão,
so
só
I ask
mencionando que
you
o
if you have
Celso, que acabou
any
de
question,
perguntar,
just
é do Comitê
mention that the
Angolano
Celsius
de
that
Barragens.
just made the
Então,
did the question, he
muito
belongs
bom tê-lo
to
aqui presente
Angola's
conosco também
Committee
neste
of
webinar.
Dam Safety. So
Diga,
it's very good
Rogério.
to have people from Angola here in this seminar.
Primeiro agradecer o área.
Firstly, I'd like
Francisca
to
por
thank
compartilhar a
you,
experiência
Ara, for sharing the Californian
conosco.
experience with us.
Vi muitas similaridades, né?
Right,
I
yeah.
really saw many similarities.
Desculpe. Vi
Okay.
até algumas
Yeah, thank you very much
similaridades.
for giving me the opportunity. And then I assume ANA would have similar hazard classification, I believe, as a federal agency, like high, significant, and low, or you have different type of downstream hazard classifications?
Era isso que eu ia comentar. Vi muitas
That was I was
similaridades,
about
né, em
to comment.
relação
I saw many
ao
similarities
padrão,
to the
até em
standard,
termos de quantidade,
even in
né?
terms
Como a
of
gente ia
quantity,
comentando,
as
a ANA
we were
especificamente regula
mentioning. ANA specifically
1.150
regulated
barragens. A gente
1,150
tem no
dams.
Brasil, não
Here in
tem
Brazil,
essa
we don't have this
definição de altura e
definition
volume
of a
que exime
height and volume
de entrar na legislação, de
that
regular.
would be
Porque
regulated,
se o hazard potential
because if
é
this
alto ou
the hazard
significante,
potential is
mesmo
high
barragens
or
de pequena
significative,
altura
even
ou pequeno
dams with
volume, elas acabam
low, high, or
tendo
small
que ser
volume,
consideradas.
they have
Esses
to be
limites, a gente
considered
acaba
with these
não
limits. So
tendo
with
uma
that, we
cobertura legal
don't
para
have a
isentar da regulação.
legal cover to
Mas eu achei
exempt dams
curioso
from
que
regulation, but it was something
os
interesting for
números
me that the
também, assim, em termos
numbers in terms of
ficam no
what
nível de
is in the level of
extremamente
extremely high,
alto e
high
significante de
and
vocês deu mais
significative
ou
of
menos,
you,
com números
it
mágicos,
was around in magic
65%
numbers
do
65%
total das
of the total
1.240
of the
barragens. É um número grande, né? É um número
1,240
grande
dams. It's a
das
high
barragens
number for
que
dams
exigem
that
uma
demands
atenção grande do Estado,
uh,
né?
high
Das
attention
equipes do
from the
Estado.
state,
E
from
aí
the
vem
state
a
teams.
questão, a
And then
pergunta,
we have the question
vocês,
now.
assim, nessas
From
1.240,
this
vocês tiveram que avaliar o hazard
1,240 dams,
potential
did you
de
have to
todas elas
analyze the hazard
e
potential from
vocês
each one
fizeram
of them?
quem faz
And
é o
did you
proprietário?
make it, or the
Uma
ones that
pergunta.
perform this analysis is the owner of this? This is one
Isso.
question.
Right. At the beginning, we actually used Google Earth Map and then our judgment to identify the hazard classifications, because we were given very short time to decide all of these dams. So we went with the knowledge people who had been inspecting the dams and understand, look at the Google map and look at the height and volume, and then make the call. And then when we have the inundation map approval process, as part of the review, we also went and modified the hazard classification if we need to. So the inundation map program actually helped us to refine the hazard classification if there's a wrong judgment call or something like that. So that helped us. So as part of the inundation map, we have been changing hazard classification if needed.
Perfeito. A equipe que vocês dispõem
Okay,
aí no
perfect. So the
estado
team that
para
you have
fazer
in this state to make all
essa
this
avaliação do hazard
this
potential,
assessment of
são
hazard
mais ou menos
potential,
quantos servidores?
how many people do you have working with you in these teams?
Quanto tempo levou?
How long? And also another question, how long it lasts to make all the reviews?
So I think it took at least a couple of years, because it depends on how the dam owner submitted the maps to us. So we have about, before 2017, we had about 63 staff in Division of Safety of Dams. But I think we have about 30 of them in the design branch and my branch, our reevaluation branch at the time, before we increased number of staff. Right now we have about 98 staff in our divisions. So at the beginning, it was big workload in 2017 and 2018. Majority, other than any urgent work or emergency work, other than spillway evaluation and some of the construction projects, majority of the staff actually among 30 dams involved in this inundation map and reviewing hazard and things. And then once we catch up on that, then we kind of have staff working on other areas that have been backlogged because of this requirement. So we are still struggling to certain dam owners, they haven't submitted the map. So for those, we actually have going over those maps, even though owner hasn't submitted, we run our DSS wise dam breach evaluation and then make sure this is low hazard dam or this is significant hazard dam. That is going on slowly. I have actually couple of staff working on it, but it's going to take time. This is not a high priority. We think it's a low hazard dam, so it's not a high priority for us.
Perfeito. Uma outra curiosidade,
Another
eu vi
thing
a
that I
questão do
found
hazard creep.
interesting,
Você
I saw the
colocou
hazard
lá.
creep that you put
Aqui no
there.
Brasil nós temos
Here in
também essa
Brazil, we
similaridade.
also have the
A
similarity,
ocupação dos vales ajussantes.
the occupation of the downstream
Não
valleys.
existem
There is
impedimentos com relação a essa
nothing to
ocupação
impede
tanto dos
this
vales ajusantes
occupation of the
dos vales
downstream
em geral,
valleys, the valleys
dentro
in
de certa
general,
área de
into some
inundação para um
area
período
of
de retorno.
inundation for the
Vocês não têm
return period.
rigor
Don't
maior
you
nisso, porque
have,
ali eles
aren't you
praticamente
more rigorous? Because
superam a
here,
barragem, né?
basically, you show they
Estão
are on the
ocupando a área
basis
de
of the dams,
segurança da
they are
barragem,
occupying the
praticamente naquela imagem que
safety
você
area in that
mostrou, né?
picture you showed
E
to
aí a
us.
responsabilidade
So, and the
acaba
responsibility
ficando
lays
para o
on the
empreendedor, né?
owner, the
Senão,
entrepreneur.
como é que vocês administram
How
isso
do
aí
you
na
manage
Califórnia?
these things in California?
Right. We are a highly populated state, but if you look at the incidents, our dam safety program is very stringent. It's very robust, I would say, because Oroville wasn't even a dam failure; it was basically an incident. And before that, I think the main dam failure was St. Francis Dam as well as Baldwin Hill Dam in the 60s. So since then, cross our finger, but we haven't had a major dam failure because we have been kind of going over some old dam reevaluation. If they are hydraulically filled, we looked at in the past doing some reevaluation and asked dam owner to go and fix those or put some buttress for the embankment if they need to because it's very weak dam. And also sometimes we ask them to lower the reservoir and maintain low reservoir if they are not making the modification. So we ask them to restrict the reservoir. Luckily, same with Lower San Fernando Dam, one of the incident I mentioned in the 70s, we were restricted that dam before the earthquake happened. So that's why I think it wasn't overtopped. It dam settled quite a bit, but our restriction actually helped because that is a hydraulically filled dam and we had a restriction. So that's why we were lucky dam didn't fail.
Perfeito, obrigado. Uma outra
Thank you very
curiosidade,
much. And another
nós
thing
estamos
that I am
também
interested in,
desafio que
we
nossa lei
also have a
exige
challenge because
a
our law demands and
publicação dos mapas
require
de
us to
inundação,
publish the inundation maps
disponibilização para o
to
público.
make them
E
public.
aí eu queria saber
And then I
como
would
foi
like
essa
to know from you,
experiência na
how was
Califórnia,
that
se teve
experience for you in
algum
California?
problema, alguma
If you
coisa
had
que
any
e lá
problem,
os
something,
prós e os contras que você
pros and cons of
eventualmente
that you
identifica
maybe
nessa questão.
identify in this issue to make the evaluation maps, make them public.
Right. We have looked into it. In the past, we were very stringent to publish any information to the public. But I think after 2017, the Oroville incident, public wanted to know their risk. So once we approved the map, we thought it is two people interpreted, so it shouldn't be any major mistake on those maps. So we published them in our website, only the approved map. Other states had same issue. They didn't want to publish at the beginning. Even some of the federal agencies, they didn't want to publish early in the days. But now many agencies are coming up and then publishing their inundation maps to the public. but we don't publish the EAP, only the inundation map. But people could use that is mainly for, it is harder to convince people. It is used only for emergency planning purpose. They don't necessarily assume they are going to be flooded by this water in case of a dam failure only. So it's kind of harder for people to understand that concept. This is mainly used for dam breach. So there are people called me who lives immediately downstream of the dam saying, I'm going to hit by this large depth of water. I should sell the house. I told him, no, you had the risk as long as you prepare for the emergency action, what to do if there's a dam fail. Dam doesn't really fail all of a sudden. You will have some warning time, so you would plan for the warning time and get out of it. But if you look at the history of the dam in California, we don't have that many dam failures. So this is mainly for us and emergency managers to prepare for in case of any incident or anything show up. But most of the time you will get a warning and you will get out of the inundation zone. So it is harder at the beginning. You will get calls from different agencies and also insurance companies. They are looking for these because home insurance go up and things. So they have been looking for this information. That's why we eventually included all the GIS information in our website for insurance and others to make use of it if they need to.
Obrigado. No Brasil, a
Thank
lei
you very much.
manda
In Brazil, the law
disponibilizar o plano
say
de
that
ação de
we
emergência,
need
não só
to
o mapa.
make
A
the
lei manda
emergency action
disponibilizar ao
plan
público
public also, not only the map, the
o
flooding
plano
map,
de emergência.
but this is what the law requires from us.
Estamos sendo exigidos disso já,
So
né?
we are demanded about that already.
Mas uma outra
So
pergunta só.
But another
Sorry.
question that I have, sorry,
Tem
sir.
duas no chat, Rogério, só para você
Mas eu
saber.
queria só
Have
mais
to-
uma perguntinha, Alan.
I just have one more question from my side, sir, for you and two others in the
Se aí na
chat.
Califórnia,
I would like to know if in
o mapa de
California,
inundação,
the
vocês
flood map,
dividem ele
if you divide it
em uma parte em que, digamos assim,
in a part that,
tem
let's
que
say, the
ajudar a
entrepreneur
população
needs to help the
a se
population
autossalvar,
to
porque não tem tempo
self-save
do sistema
themselves
de
because
defesa
there's no
civil
time to the civil
estadual
defense system, the state
atuar,
civil defense system
e outra que
act, and
assim, digamos assim, o
other part
empreendedor
of the
atua,
map
mas
where
o
the
sistema de
government
defesa civil
acts,
já
but
entra
the
para
civil
ajudar
defense already
a
comes to help
população
the
a
population
evacuar a área. Vocês
in the
chegam a fazer essa
evacuations
divisão?
process. Do you make this kind of a division in the map or not?
Não sei se entenderam.
I don't know if you understood, if I was clear enough for this question.
We here in Brazil, nós aqui no Brasil
Here in
dividimos
Brazil, we
duas
divide
zonas.
the map in two
Uma zona que
zones.
nós
One in
chamamos de
a zone that we
autossalvamento,
call
em
self-saving
que
zone,
o empreendedor,
where the
junto com a
entrepreneur,
população,
the
tem que tomar
dance
providência,
owner,
porque não há
together with the
tempo da
population,
defesa
may
civil
take the actions
atuar.
because there's no
Sei lá,
time for
30
the state
minutos depois do
act.
acidente,
Let's say 30
até
minutes
30
after the
minutos a
event,
mais.
the accident.
E após essa
And
área,
after that
que aí há
area
tempo de mobilizar a
would
defesa
have time
civil,
to
aí
mobilize
que nós chamamos de
the
zona de
state.
salvamento
This is
secundário, né?
what we
Mas
call
aí foi uma pergunta,
secondary
só
saving zone. But
curiosidade
this
mesmo.
is just a curiosity from my side to know if you do that, if you do this way, if you work this way in California.
No, we don't keep two separate zoning system. We have only one map that publish, and then dam emergency managers and others would make use of the map. But when they do actual event evacuation, it may not be same map. Say, for example, the failure could be different conditions. We produce map with more conservative storage and conservative dam breach parameters. However, every incidents are different because the storage could be different from what we assumed in the map. So there should be some kind of interpretation they should do when the incident develops. So that's why we should explain to public that it is not really an evacuation map. It is just the information for emergency managers to evacuate the people if there's an incident happen. Typically, storm-induced failure, you will have some time to do the action, but majority of the seismic event could happen pretty quick. So the maps would be more useful for seismic cases when there's an earthquake happen. So that's why we use sunny day failure condition. We didn't introduce storm induced. So these maps would be readily available if there's a seismic event. At least they would be somewhat conservative, but they should use the map as immediately to take some action immediately. So that is but there are in the EAP, I believe there are high water level evacuation, like a warning system and things like a different level of warning system they document in the EAP based on this inundation map and things, and also how the reservoirs are operated.
Thank you very much. Obrigado, Aranha.
Nessa linha, Rogério, que
In
eu ia
this line,
perguntar
Rogério,
se
that
o empreendedor,
I was about to
dono da
ask
barragem,
if it's
tem
the
alguma
entrepreneur, the
responsabilidade
dam's
no
owner has
momento
any
do
kind of a
acidente para
responsibility at
evacuar
the
as
moment of the
pessoas.
failure to
E se
evacuate
a
people.
divisão de segurança
And
de
if there
barragens,
is the
essa reforma
division
também,
of dam
regulador,
safety also,
também tem alguma
as a
função
regulator,
no
also
momento do
have
acidente?
any role at the moment of this accident or this failure?
So the dam owner has an obligation to inform the emergency managers if there's an incident happen, and then provide enough information for them to save the people. If the dam owner doesn't act in a manner we would anticipate him to act, like as a regulator, then we would step in. Say, for example, if dam owner knows of an incident could potentially fail the dam, it is very imminent to fail the dam. If dam owner not taking care how to stop the failure, then we would engage and deploy people or find some other contractor to get involved. And if we can stop the failure, we would involve in that. So we have authority to go and intervene dam owner if they are not acting properly.
Perfeito. Obrigado, bem interessante. Eu vou seguir aqui, tem três
Interesting.
perguntas.
So
aqui no
we have
chat.
3 questions now.
O Sérgio Salgado pergunta
Sérgio
para as
Salgado is
barragens que
asking,
não estão dentro
to
da
the dams that are
jurisdição,
not in the
por conta do tamanho
jurisdictional
delas serem
zone due
pequenas,
to the size of them, the
é feito
smallest
algum
one.
tipo de análise
Do you
sobre
do any
possíveis
kind of
danos que
analysis
elas
about
possam
the
causar também?
possible
Porque algumas
damage that
delas também
they may cause?
poderiam,
Because
inclusive, ser
some of
coisas
them can
jurídicas, né?
also involve life
Algumas
loss.
próximas a residências, por
Some
exemplo.
closer to
Existe alguma atuação ou ela
some
diretor
houses.
tem
Is there
nenhuma
any
atuação?
act, or they don't have any responsibility, or they don't have to act?
So we don't really involve in any additional work if we identify this dam doesn't meet the jurisdictional size. But as an owner, the population downstream could sue them if they fail something. So they have still responsibility to keep their dam safe because of the lawsuit and other things would come. Because it's their dam, they didn't take care of it. That's why it failed and impacted downstream. So the downstream population can go after the dam owner if there are any impacts.
Perfeito. Obrigado. O Fabiano Alves pergunta se
Fabiano
vocês
Alves is
recomendam
asking
aos
if you
empreendedores que
recommend
realizem
to dams
seguros
owners to
para os seus
have
empreendimentos em casos de danos. Existe alguma legislação ambiental
safety, or
atrelada à segurança
is
de
there any
barragens? São duas
environmental
perguntas.
legislation? So 2 questions.
Se os empreendedores realizam
One,
seguros,
if the
solicitam isso. E a
if
outra
you require
pergunta é
from
se há
them to
alguma
have an insurance
legislação na
policy,
área ambiental
and the other one, if it
que
is there is
afete
any
a segurança
environmental
de
regulation
barragens
that
também.
affect dam safety also.
Yeah, so we don't require dam owner to have insurance. But on the environmental side, we don't, some of the modification that dam safety we require dam owner to do, they still need to meet the environmental requirement. So sometimes these meeting the environmental requirement could take longer, so that delays our dam safety concern or repair. So at that point, we try to communicate with the environmental regulatory group and then see whether we can push them to get those environmental hurdles sorted out or solved it. But I know there are some projects that are delayed because of the environmental concern. But typically we sort it out and then get it done. If it is taking too long, then we would restrict the reservoir to lower level if it is going to take longer for them to get the environmental approval.
Perfeito. Mais uma pergunta, o
Another
Wesley
question,
Leonel
Wesley.
pergunta
Wesley
se no
Leonel
mapa
is
de
asking
inundação
if
são
the
colocadas
flood mapping,
placas que
if you
orientam a
have some
população
signs
a
to
se deslocar para um
guide the
lugar seguro,
population to
né?
displace
Placas que
themselves to a
orientam
safe place.
as vias de
That signs
evacuação da
that
cidade.
will
E
guide
se sim,
the
de quem é a
evacuation road.
responsabilidade pela
If
instalação
yes,
dessas
who has the
placas, dessas
responsibility to
sinalizações?
place
E
these
também de
signs
quem é a
in the
responsabilidade pelo
evacuation road, and
treinamento da
also
população para a
who is also
evacuação?
responsible for this evacuation training to the population?
Right. So we don't have any signs for higher ground or evacuation route, but we include, there are critical facilities like hospitals, police station, fire stations, and things on the map. But the evacuation would be done by emergency managers based on the incident. So it's going to be danger if we put some evacuation route, unless we know it is mainly flood-induced evacuation. You could identify higher ground, but there could be other cases like seismic. We cannot control it. So that's why we didn't want to interpret anything where they should evacuate or what they should do. This is basically a map to provide planning purpose for the emergency managers. They are the one responsible for the evacuation. And what was the other? There was another question, I believe. I probably missed it.
Sobre o treinamento da
It was about
população,
the
quem é a
training. Who is
responsabilidade?
responsible for training the population in
Também deve
evacuation
ser. Não sei
situation?
se o
Right.
proprietário
I
da
don't know
área
if
tem
the dam's
responsabilidade.
owner has a responsibility on this training.
So as part of the EAP development, dam owner has to do the emergency exercises with their relevant emergency managers, not necessarily all the population, but all the critical agencies like police, sheriff, and any highway agencies if they need to be. So the emergency exercise should be done. Dam owners are responsible, and then that goes into the EAP documentation. So, and then they have to do every 1 year or every 2 years, I believe, for these exercises with the other emergency managers. That's a requirement from California Emergency Services. They handle most of those emergency management with the dam owners. They are the one approving the EAPs as well. We don't approve EAP. We only approve the inundation map. And then California Emergency Services, they approve the EAPs.
Certo. Interessante.
Interesting.
O Leonel pergunta também nessa
Leonel
linha
is
da
also asking the same line of this
se
emergency
vocês
plan,
usam
if you
diferentes
use
níveis de
different
severidade,
levels
por
of
exemplo,
severity, for
nível
instance,
normal, nível de
normal level, attention level, alert, warning level, and emergency level. We see that it is progressing. Each one of them is linked to a set of emergency actions. So I believe you at least have something, but this is the question, if you also have something in the sensing in the emergency action plan.
Right. So my understanding, the EAP should have normal level, higher water level, and there are 3 or 4 different categories. So they would document those when the warning would be provided if it is high water event or different cases. So there are different levels of emergencies identified in the EAP. We in our map we don't really talk about different level of emergency. It depends on the dam owner, operation of the reservoir, and then what happened during an event. So they pre-identify those cases when they would inform different entities downstream in what level, so that way it would be followed during an emergency.
Perfeito, obrigado. E ele pergunta ao
Thank you.
Celso
And
também
Celso is
se
also asking
na
if
legislação da
in
Califórnia,
California
se ela
legislation,
prevê
if
penalizações
you
ou
predict
multas
penalties or
para os
fees
proprietários de barragem, caso
for
eles
dams
não
owner
cumpram,
in
né?
case they
Está
do not
previsto.
fulfill their
E qual o valor da
requirements.
multa? Eu
And
perguntaria
what
também.
would be the amount
Você
of
tem uma
this
ideia
fee?
do
If you have any
qual o valor
idea
das
of the
multas
amount of
envolvidas,
the fees that are involved in this process.
mais ou menos?
Right. So this is a new program we are bringing in. In the past, we have been restricting the reservoir, typically 10 feet, 20 feet, depending on the need. But it's a big loss for dam owner about water usage and things. But now we are, after 2017, we are introducing the new legislation that allow us to do these fines. So the fines depend on how long they have been violating this. After we inform them, we are going to fine, that is notice of violation, and then the clock start ticking, I believe. So the fines could be in the range of $1,000 to maybe 10,000, 100,000, depending on how long they have been violating the requirement.
Uhum.
But we haven't really fined anybody yet because our program kind of developing now. We have to go through a lot of legislation, a lot of rulemaking, and the regulations, and then public meetings and things. So we are kind of getting towards when we could send a notice of violation to dam owners right now.
Perfeito. Rogério, tem mais 2 perguntas
Two
aqui
more
mais
questions
gerais.
we have, but
Perguntar se
these
você
are
tem alguma
general
coisa, a
ones.
gente
So
vai
I would
até
like
que
to
horas
ask
também,
you
só para
how many times to have.
Pro encerramento mesmo.
I think
I'm
we are
okay.
moving to the end.
I'm okay to stay another 10, 15 minutes if needed.
Ok. Tem só uma pergunta, o Jean listou
Just
uma
another
série de
questions.
perguntas, além da
Jean
Rose.
listed many
A Rose
questions, and also
pergunta qual é a
Rose
precipitação
is asking
anual
what is
na
the annual
Califórnia.
precipitation in
Ou se
California,
o senhor já visitou alguma
and if
barragem
you
no
have already
Brasil.
visited a dam in Brazil.
No, I haven't visited dam in Brazil. The typical rainfall, mean annual precipitation can range from 12 to 25 or 30 inches per year. Some of the California, I think southern part of the California is more drier compared to northern part. So those are differences. So the north get more rainfall compared to Southern California. And majority of the water, we have canals and things to send water to Southern California if because of their drought conditions.
Perfeito. Aí o Rogério, o Jean fez um conjunto de perguntas. Eu vou
Jean
procurar não
prepared a
estender
set of
aqui muito também.
questions.
Acho que
I
muitas
want
foram
to expand
abordadas
so
aqui,
much. Many were already answered here.
mas a pergunta
But the
que eu achei
question
poderia
that
ser
I
bem
thought
interessante
that
até
could
para
be very
partir para talvez
interesting,
para o
even
encerramento, ver se alguém
to
mais tem
move to
também.
the end. I don't know if anybody else has a question, but it's the following. After the
Com o
incident
vendedor da barragem de Oroville, né, em
and
2017.
the problem you
Vocês
have in
implementaram novas
2017,
medidas de
did you
segurança,
implement
né?
new
Quais foram essas
safety
medidas?
measures? Which one were
Quais foram os
done?
principais aprendizados
What
dessa
were
crise
the
que
main
vocês
lesson learned you
vivenciaram, né?
had and you lived from
E que,
2017?
vamos dizer assim,
And let's
que
say,
tipo de lição vocês
what
poderiam
kind
passar
of
para nós aqui no Brasil
message you
também, né?
could
Tipo de
give to
fortalecer a
us in
segurança
Brazil to
das
strengthen
barragens e evitar
our
incidentes
dam
como
safety
esse
and avoid
de
the
Oroville 2017.
incidents like this one in Oroville 2017?
So there are a lot of changes after 2017. The EAP and inundation maps are major useful information after 2017. We didn't have, all the dams didn't have inundation maps or EAP. It was voluntary requirement by the dam owner. They can prepare inundation map and EAP, but there's no California or dam safety requirement for any of the owner to have inundation map or EAP. So that's the big change. But there are different interests come into play when owner operate, and during an emergency, owner may have different interests than regulatory agency like us, because they may wanted to have more storage in a storm, even because they need water to supply to their clients and things. So we have different interests, mainly for safeguarding the public and any environmental concern. So that kind of disconnect, I believe, because the Oroville Dam had also FERC, the second regulator, the jurisdictional, because of the power generation, it has two different regulators. But we didn't have any real friction between the regulators. We kind of joined together and worked together. But the dam was owned by the state of California as well. So there were some differences between within the state. We are part of the state, and dam owner is part of the state. So there wasn't clear differentiation whose order should be taken. Like, it's both are coming from state of California agencies. So that kind of concern we had. But other than that, I think it wasn't too bad compared to having regulators step in as needed and then interpret them. Okay, you need to do this, then they have to do it. But I think the re-evaluation would help us quite a bit, going back and look at the old dams and try to interpret those. And also some of the inspections, we pay more attention for seepage and things. Sometimes we do more detail, ask owners to do detailed evaluation of any concern, like any seepage coming out of the dam, investigate them and identify where they are coming and what's causing it and things.
Perfeito, obrigado, Rogério.
Thank you, Rogério.
Alan, só agradecer.
Just to
Da
thank
minha
you,
parte, não
sir.
tenho mais.
From my side,
Só
I
agradecer
have no
demais aí,
further
foi
questions.
muito
Just thank you very much. We really
enriquecedor o
appreciate
diálogo,
your
a
participation.
discussão
The
com você.
dialogue
Agradecer também a
was
Usace
a
por ter
very rich
proporcionado
one.
essa
And also thank you, Usace, for
oportunidade aqui.
this
Calvin
opportunity.
está representando a Usace.
In case Calvin
Muito
wants to
obrigado
say something that is
pela palavra.
representing Usace. Thank you very
Perfeito. Não sei se a
much.
Aline quer falar alguma coisa.
I don't know if
Calvin?
Aline wants to say something, Calvin.
Não, só agradecer.
Not from my side, just thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Calvin?
Thank you, everyone, for giving me the opportunity, and appreciate any question. If you have any further question, you may have my email. You could send it. If I get a chance, I could respond to it. And it was good talking to you and then understand how it works and things. Appreciate your time as well. Thank you very much.
Excelente. Muito obrigado, doutor Aria. Foi excelente, muito
Thank
bom
you,
mesmo.
Dr. Aria. It was
Muitas
excellent.
similaridades
many similarities between the approaches and also the problems that we have, the common problems that we have. And it helps us a lot to understand your experience, how you are dealing, and the approaches that you have. Thank you for your availability also. And it would be good to be in contact with you later to move forward with this dialogue. But I thank you. Once you want to come to Brazil and visit Adam, you are already invited, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Obrigado a todos que participaram aqui também. Agradeço muito por
Thank
mais
you, all
esse
of you that have
webinar fechando o ano.
participated. Thank you very much for this
Flávio,
last webinar in our
Calvin,
2024
Usace também,
year.
por
Thank you,
todo esse trabalho
Usace,
durante esse
Calvin,
ano.
for all this work during this
Encerramos
year.
aqui esse
And now we are
webinar. Muito
closing
obrigado,
this
boa tarde.
webinar. Thank you very much and good afternoon.
Obrigado.